In the early morning hours of October 4th, 2012, a 911 operator in Parker County, Texas, took a call that would defy all explanation. It came from inside the quiet, upscale, gated community of Annetta South. On the other end of the line was 17-year-old Jake Evans, and his voice was eerily, almost unnaturally, calm. Over the next 20 minutes, Jake walked the operator through the brutal murder of his 48-year-old mother, Jami, and his 15-year-old sister, Mallory. There was no anger, no panic, not even a hint of remorse in his voice. When the dispatcher pressed him for a reason, his answer became a chilling summary of the entire case. "It's weird. I wasn't even really angry with them. It just kind of happened." But it didn't just happen. As investigators would quickly learn, this was no spontaneous act of violence. It was a calculated plan, backed by a 4-page written confession and a twisted inspiration drawn from one of horror's most famous killers. This is the story of Jake Evans, a teenager who wanted to kill without a conscience, just like the fictional Michael Myers. He would soon find out that in the real world, you can't turn off the horror. We're going to break down the bone-chilling 911 call that announced his crimes and dig into the confession that detailed his journey from violent fantasy to an even more violent reality. Anyone looking in on the Evans family would have seen something close to the American dream. They lived in a beautiful home in Annetta South, a comfortable suburb about 20 miles west of Fort Worth. They were known around town as a close, tight-knit family. Jami Evans, the mother, was a former schoolteacher who was now homeschooling Jake. The father, Daryl, was a musician often away on business. Besides Jake, there were 3 daughters, 15-year-old Mallory, and 2 older sisters, Emily and Audrey, who no longer lived at home. Jake himself was described by those who knew him as quiet, polite, and a nice kid. He'd gone to Aledo High School before his mom started homeschooling him. There were simply no red flags, no history of violence, no visible signs of the storm that was brewing just beneath the surface. By all accounts, he was a normal teenager in a loving family. And it's this perfect veneer of normalcy that makes what happened on October 4th so deeply disturbing. Jake's father was out of town for work. His 2 older sisters were away. That left just Jake, his mother Jami, and his sister Mallory in the house. The day before had been completely ordinary, but inside Jake's mind, a plan he'd been thinking about for a while was finally taking shape. It was a plan that would not only end 2 lives, but also reveal his dark obsession with the mechanics of murder, an obsession sparked by a horror film he couldn't stop watching. The 911 call Jake Evans made is, without a doubt, one of the most unsettling pieces of evidence in modern true crime. It's not just what he says, it's how he says it. For over 20 minutes, his voice is unnervingly steady as he describes the horror to a dispatcher who is audibly trying to make sense of it all. After confessing to the murders in the first few seconds, the operator asks if he is sure they are dead. He answers with a simple, yes. He then calmly confirms his name and where he is, waiting for instructions. There's no crying, no yelling, just a flat, detached voice. The dispatcher, keeping her composure, tries to find a motive. "Was there a reason that you were so angry at your mother and sister?" she asks. Jake's response is baffling. "I don't know. It's weird. I wasn't even really angry with them. It just kind of happened. I've been kind of planning on killing for a while now." He goes on to say he'd been planning to kill pretty much anybody. This wasn't a crime of passion. It throws that idea right out the window. By his own admission, this was premeditated. As the call goes on, he offers a strange glimpse into how he saw his family. "This is probably selfish of me to say, but to me, I felt like they were suffocating me in a way." He then adds a shocking moment of self-awareness. "Obviously, you know, I'm pretty, I guess, evil." When the dispatcher asks him to describe what happened, Jake's account is both graphic and disturbingly matter-of-fact. "I told my sister that my mom needed her," he says. "She was in her room, and she came out of her room, and I shot her. and she rolled down the stairs, and I shot her again. He adds, and then I went down, and I shot my mom about maybe 3 or 4 times. Throughout the call, Jake seems more worried about what will happen to him than about what he's just done. He asks the operator if the police will kill him. He even expresses a sudden fear of the very weapon he just used, saying, "I'm just so freaked out by guns now. I hate the feeling of killing someone." This statement is a bizarre contradiction to his calm tone, suggesting a total disconnect between his actions and his feelings. He sounds less like a son and brother in grief, and more like a spectator watching his own life fall apart. He tells the operator, "This is really going to mess me up in the future." It's an understatement so profound it's almost unbelievable. The call is a raw, unfiltered look into a mind that had been soaking in violent thoughts, all leading to this moment of calm, horrifying confession. While the 911 call captured the immediate aftermath, it was a 4-page handwritten note Jake wrote after his arrest that gave a terrifying look into his actual motivations. The confession revealed that his senseless act was fueled by a very specific, very dark inspiration: the 2007 Rob Zombie remake of the horror movie Halloween. Jake wrote that he watched the movie 3 times in the week before the murders. He wasn't just watching it, he was studying it. He was focused on the villain, a young Michael Myers, who murders his own family. Jake wasn't captivated by the horror, but by the killer's mindset. While watching it, I was amazed at how at ease the boy was during the murders and how little remorse he had afterward, he wrote. This was the key. Jake didn't want to be scared by Michael Myers. He wanted to be Michael Myers. He wrote, "I was thinking to myself it would be the same for me when I kill someone." He saw the fictional character as a way to commit murder without a conscience. Criminal psychologists believe Jake was desperately looking for a way to carry out his homicidal urges without the crushing weight of guilt he knew should follow. Michael Myers was his role model for remorseless violence. His confession chillingly explains how he tried to make it a reality. He admitted that his original plan was much bigger. After killing his mother and sister, he planned to go across the street to his grandparents' house and kill them, along with his oldest sister, Emily. His other sister, Audrey, was supposed to visit from college the next day, and he planned to kill her too. The confession lays out just how methodical and cold-blooded his plan was. He wrote that he first thought about using a knife, but worried about the pain it would cause Mallory. That brief flicker of empathy was quickly crushed by his desire to kill. He settled on the .22 revolver, stolen from his grandfather, thinking it would be less painful. He describes luring Mallory from her room, pretending their mom needed her. She came out, and out of the corner of her eye saw me pointing the gun at her, Jake wrote. She thought I was joking and told me that I was freaking her out. I shot her in the back and then the head. He then went to the study and shot his mother 3 times. But the reality of his actions completely shattered the movie-inspired fantasy he'd built in his head. The calm, detached killer he wanted to be was gone, replaced by a screaming, horrified teenager. In shock, I ran to my room and was screaming at the top of my lungs that I am really messed up and that I killed my mom and sister. The fantasy had crumbled. The remorselessness he'd admired in Michael Myers was nowhere to be found. His confession adds one last, terrifying detail. He heard noises and realized Mallory was still alive. In that moment, the need to finish his plan took over. While I loaded the gun back up, I was shouting that I was sorry and then ran as fast as I could to kill her, he wrote. I made sure my mom was dead and shot her again in the head. After confirming they were both dead, he put the gun on the kitchen counter and called 911. He ended his confession with a line that was a world away from his cinematic hero. I know now that I'm done with killing. It's the most dreadful and terrifying thing I will ever experience. And what happened last night will haunt me forever. The case of Jake Evans is psychologically complex and deeply disturbing. His actions and words paint a picture of a young man trapped between a cold, rational plan and a total emotional breakdown. On one hand, he planned the murders down to the weapon. On the other, he said it just kind of happened and seemed truly shocked by what he'd done. His obsession with Michael Myers is a crucial part of this. It seems Jake wasn't just inspired by a movie like a typical copycat killer. He was using the character as a kind of psychological shield. It's as if he believed that by playing the part of an emotionless killer, he could avoid the guilt and remorse he knew should come with his actions. His confession even tries to justify what he did, claiming he saw racism and other bad traits in his family and was afraid they were becoming people he hated. This was likely something he came up with after the fact, a way to create a logical reason for an illogical and horrifying urge. After his arrest, the legal system had to figure out what to do with him. In October 2013, a judge found him mentally incompetent to stand trial, and he was sent to a state mental hospital. This meant he couldn't understand the charges against him or help with his own defense. He spent more than 2 years there. By April 2015, doctors determined his competency had been restored, and he was finally able to face the charges. Prosecutors waived the capital murder charge, partly because of legal issues with sentencing juveniles in capital cases, and also because the family wanted to avoid a painful trial. In an incredible act of forgiveness, his remaining family members wrote a letter supporting a plea deal. They stated, "None of us want Jake and our family to be subjected to a capital murder trial, which we feel would not be in his and our family's best interest. We wish to close this chapter of our lives in order to continue healing as a family." Ultimately, a 19-year-old Jake Evans pleaded guilty to 2 counts of murder. He was sentenced to 2 consecutive 45-year prison terms. Under his sentence, he'll be eligible for parole after serving a minimum of 22.5 years. The Jake Evans case is a haunting look at how a seemingly normal kid can get lost in a violent fantasy. It's a story about the terrifying power of an idea and what happens when that fantasy is chased all the way to its horrific end. A young man, normal on the surface, became so obsessed with the idea of remorseless violence that he turned his own home into a horror movie. He wanted to be Michael Myers, the boy who killed without feeling. But in the bloody aftermath, he was left with only the dreadful and terrifying reality of his actions, a reality that he himself said would haunt him forever. The calm voice on the 911 call, the disturbed confession, and the shattered lives of the Evans family are a chilling reminder that the scariest monsters aren't always on a movie screen. Sometimes, they're the ones fighting demons in their own minds, and tragedy strikes when those demons win. The questions this case brings up are tough, and there are no easy answers. What role does violent media play in a vulnerable mind? And where does personal responsibility kick in? Let us know what you think about this case in the comments below. And if you found this analysis compelling, please consider subscribing for more cases that explore the complexities of the criminal mind.